Welcome to the CoinGecko podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Young. Each week, we will be interviewing someone from the blockchain industry to learn more about this fast-moving cryptocurrency economy. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The CoinGecko podcast is produced each week to help you stay ahead of the curve. Show notes can be found at podcast.coingecko.com. I highly encourage you to join our newsletter where we send out top news in the crypto industry every Monday to Friday. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter and Telegram at CoinGecko. Welcome to the CoinGecko podcast. For today's episode, we have the honor of welcoming Sandeep Naiwal, co-founder and COO of Matic Network. Matic Network is a layer 2 scaling solution. It aims to bring scalable and instant blockchain transactions on Ethereum using an adapted version of Plasma with proof-of-stake-based sidechains. Welcome on the show, Sandeep.
Thanks, Bobby, for having me here. Thanks, CoinGecko, for inviting me on this podcast. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, for the first question, we want to know a little bit about your personal story. How did you get involved in the blockchain and cryptocurrency industry? Following that, what made you start Matic Network after that?
Yeah, so before coming to Matic, I have a background in computer science itself. And then I worked for Computer Sciences Corporation, one of the earliest software services firm from US, right? So I was working with them for 2 years. And then I did my management also in information technology and computer science itself. And then I worked with Deloitte for a very small time. And then I was selected as the CTO and head of technology basically for Wellspun e-commerce. So Wellspun is a $4 billion company in India. So I was the CTO of their e-commerce division, right? So it was a small division but was going very fast and all that. So I got a lot of exposure from there. Then I always in my whole life, like I've done multiple startups before, although like many of them were part-time startups, not like full-blown startups, but entrepreneurship was high priority in terms of what I wanted to do. So I got out of my role at Wellspun and then raised some money and then started something called Scope Fever, which was a B2B services marketplace. Like it was a marketplace, you can think of it like an Alibaba or Amazon, but for services. And it connected B2B partners. Like in India, you know that there are multiple service providers who provide services from, software development to design to XYZ, right? To provide a platform where you have trusted and verified vendors who could do work for the clients who are looking for them. Because otherwise you simply Google them and then reach out to them. You have absolutely no idea about their credentials and everything. And you go by their website. So I was doing that and that went well for 1.5 years, but it was not actually scaling the way I wanted it to be. It was making, decent money, but then it was not up to my satisfaction. And that was the time where I had started thinking that I wanted to do something which is really scalable and that can only be enabled by some high-tech implementations of products behind that. So I started learning about artificial intelligence initially, but then I realized that it required a lot of knowledge of mathematics and everything, which sort of has a academic fervor to it also. Then I stumbled into blockchain, and at that time, it was like end of 2015 or early 2016. And then I started reading Mastering Bitcoin. Although I had known about Bitcoin, and in 2013, at one point, I had also thought about mining Bitcoin, but I never really ventured too deep into it. But then I was reading Mastering Bitcoin, the famous book from Andreas Antonopoulos, kind of the Bible to get into blockchain, right? So I was reading into that, and third or fourth chapter in, I realized this is really a big thing, and why was I not focusing on it before? So that's when I started my work with blockchain. Initially, I did some consulting. And then from there, I ventured into a lot of product development for various kind of clients. And then from there, I was also active on a lot of Indian crypto communities at that time. And we used to solve a lot of technical queries for people because many people did not know technical stuff. And from there, I got to be friends with the Matic's co-founder, Jayanti. And he was working on Plasma and all that. And then we, got to talking on a lot of fronts, and then initially collaborated on small stuff. But then later on, we moved on to the once Jayanti built the basic POC for Plasma MVP. I thought that this is something that we can really build together, and then we joined hands. And then we started Matic Network from there. So that's kind of the journey.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you mentioned about how you started out in the tech industry, building something that you thought it was scalable, but at the end you realize that it's a lot of work and it's not really scalable, and you're looking for opportunities that to build something that is scalable. I think your story resonates quite closely with me when we started CoinGecko back in 2014. Wanted something that is scalable and something that we can do and serve the global audience from where we are. And it's interesting.
Good thing was that, before starting into Matic Network, I had almost put in like 1.5 to 2 years into blockchain already, working on many, many products, providing consulting to some of the clients and building some products on my own and everything. And that gave me a lot of like preparation before I really, started out with Matic Network. So yeah, that was a good thing that worked out in favor of us.
Yeah, I agree. Like everything that you do from a young age, like it adds up to your experience on what you can do in the future. So totally agree on that. So I have a question. So maybe you can help explain to our audience listening in your simplest, most non-technical manner, what is Matic Network?
So basically, see, to understand Matic Network, you will have to understand the scaling issues that the blockchains face. So, to give a very simple idea, that Bitcoin can process currently around 7 transactions per second, right? And, Ethereum currently processes around 13 to 15 transactions per second. Especially for Ethereum, where we are saying that Ethereum is the world computer, right? And you will do a lot of computation on Ethereum, programmable money use cases and all that. So the scale is very, very small. And scalability, hence, has been one of the biggest focus area of all the development teams since 2017, when we saw the massive boom in blockchains and, people realized that blockchains were not ready for mass adoption because there's no scalability. So there have been multiple attempts to do scalability. Some of the ones are on layer 1, like the bigger projects that you see like EOS or Tron or Zilliqa, QuarkChain. I would say there'll be at least 100 projects which started out building some sort of new blockchain, including Dfinity, Polkadot, and, Cosmos. All of these have been attempts at, layer 1 or, some sort of layer 1 area to scale a blockchain. And then the other kind of category of attempts is the layer 2, where, you actually try to scale a blockchain at a layer 2. That means the layer 1 blockchain remains as is. It becomes like a settlement layer. And then you do fast and large scale transactions on layer 2. So the prime example of layer 2, would be Lightning Network on Bitcoin, right? It's also a layer 2 scaling approach. Similarly, on Ethereum, there have been also multiple layer 2 approaches. And then on layer 2 also, there are multiple categories, right? So there are 2-3 categories primarily. I'll speak about 2 main categories. One has been state channel, and the other one is the side chain or plasma kind of category. So the state channel category also, then you would have seen multiple projects like Raiden Network or Seller Network recently, which is also a fellow Binance Launchpad project, or Counterfactual or Connects Network. All of these projects are trying to achieve scalability using state channels. That's one category. The other category, and Lightning Network, by the way, on Bitcoin is also sort of a state channel implementation. And then on the second category, as I said, that is the side chain and plasma kind of this thing. So the Matic Network is actually comes from this category, which talks about a side chain architecture, which is actually very closely tied with the layer 1, which is Ethereum. So why I am mentioning that closely tied layer 2 is that, you have a lot of other side chain projects also, like POAs. There are projects like GoChain, which only have a simple bridge with the Ethereum. And then every activity there, they have a separate consensus mechanism and everything. So there is one kind of side chains which are there. In those kind of side chains, what happens is that once you move some asset from Ethereum to the side chain, let's say GoChain or XDAI chain, or, your, let's say GoChain or whatever, or even Loom Network, for example, all of these are simple side chains where they have a simple bridge, and then you can bring your assets to the side chain. Once your asset is on the side chain, then there is no control of the main chain on those assets. So you are actually at the complete mercy of the validators which are there on the side chain in this kind of scenario. What Matic Network comes from is that it's a plasma enabled side chain. So when we say plasma is a framework which basically, in a very simple terms, you can think of plasma as 2 main features. One is that as a user, you control the assets or the ownership of your assets is still defined by the Ethereum main chain itself. Like even if compare that to the earlier example I was giving for, let's say, POA or Loom Network, any other chain, where you take your assets from Ethereum via bridge to the side chain, and then the side chain has the full control of your assets. In case of Plasma and in case of Matic Network, the ownership of the assets is still secured by the Ethereum main chain. That means even if the side chain goes rogue, you as a user can go to the main chain and say that, hey, these are my assets and I want to withdraw it from the side chain. You can withdraw it from Ethereum itself. Second thing is called fraud proofs, where if some activity or some particular transaction or something has happened on the side chain which is not as per the rules of the consensus, then using fraud proofs on the main chain, you can validate and challenge any particular transactions that are happening on the side chain. And also one more thing, that in terms of the proof of stake, the stake of these validators are residing on the main chain itself. Again, compare that to, let's say, POA or Loom chain and all that, where the assets, the stakes of the proof of stake participants are also on their side chains. Like, if few participants control the chain, then they control everything. In case of Matic Network, the stakes are there on Ethereum. So if somebody is able to find a flaw and is able to challenge using a fraud proof and is able to prove, then he gets to slash these participants. So in summary, in very simple summary, what I'm trying to say is that Matic Network is a layer 2 side chain, which is very closely integrated with Ethereum main chain using Plasma. What Plasma provides is that it provides the ownership of the assets, which is determined by the Ethereum main chain itself. And then the fraud proof, that means the proving or basically the guiding or guarding the transactions that are happening on the side chain. So basically with Matic sidechain, what you get is an extension of Ethereum itself. Like the security and the asset security that you get on Matic sidechain is as good as Ethereum main chain itself, rather than relying only on the security of the side chains. So Matic Network provides you that scalability on the layer 2, where you can do payments. And on Matic sidechain, we also support EVM, which means that it supports smart contracts. So on Matic sidechain, you can not only do the payments, unlike Raiden Network, which only supports payment. On Matic Network, you can, or the dApp developers can build their smart contracts also. So that's kind of the differentiating factor of Matic.
Wow. I'm really impressed with the explanation that you give. I mean, for a longest period of time, I think this scalability topic is something that is really hard to understand. I like how you broke it down into the different layers, the differences between layer 1 and layer 2, and between layer 2, broken it down into two major categories, which is the state-based channel, and then as well as the sidechain-based channel category, which is on Matic Network. So I think a lot of people will appreciate this explanation on how you look at the scalability. I also read somewhere that there is also a layer 0 scaling solution out there in the market. Maybe you want to explain a little bit about how this fit into an entire ecosystem of scalability?
Yeah. So layer 2, for example, there are two main companies over there. One is Bloxroot, another one like recently upcoming is Marlin Protocol, right? So what these layer 0 solutions are trying to do is that, so when on a layer 1 blockchain, let's say on Ethereum or Bitcoin and all that, when a miner actually mines a block, or basically full nodes, communicate with each other, they communicate using Gossip Protocol. So Gossip Protocol is nothing but when, let's say you and me and let's say 5 other people are there, are the nodes in the network. How I communicate to the network is that I broadcast to everyone I am connected to. And then you receive the block and then you broadcast to everyone that you are connected to. Similarly, everyone does that. And you can already see that there is a lot of redundancy and a lot of unnecessary work that is done over there, right? So some of these layer 0 protocol, what they're trying to do is that they're trying to optimize these network level paths on how these blocks traverse between one node to another. So rather than, I broadcasting to everyone, I simply pass it on to, let's say, Marlin protocol. And then Marlin network internally has a fastest path to reach from one node to another. And then that delivers the packet from one node to the another with some redundancy, not the extreme redundancy. What it does is that the block propagation times reduce, right? So one of the biggest problems and one of the reasons of scalability of public blockchain is that block propagation time are large, because let's say I'm transferring 1 MB of data from one node to another. And if let's say I'm a miner, I produce a block and I'm broadcasting it to the two other miners. the blockchain has to make sure that all of the other miners also receive the block, and then they have ample time to fight or to compete for the next block. Otherwise, the miner who knows the next block, he will keep mining the next block, right? That is one of the reasons that the block size has to be kept as a stable size. But once these layer zero platforms protocols are there, they speed up this packet transmission on the network layer. So understand these things, like layer zero is actually network layer. Layer one is actually more like, as an analogy, consider it like an operating system layer. So you have network, then you have operating system, like you're using Windows or Mac. So consider layer one or Bitcoin or Ethereum as the operating system. And then the layer two can be an application level platform where you are running some application on top of layer one. So that will be the simple description that way.
Yeah, totally makes a lot of sense. So talking about layer one and layer two, I know Ethereum is currently undergoing a lot of protocol upgrades, and especially towards Ethereum 2.0 with sharding and all. This is, I believe, layer one improvement. So if Ethereum is doing all these things to improve TPS on layer one, like, do we still need layer two scalability solution, or why should we still need layer two scalability solution even though Ethereum is undergoing upgrades by itself?
Yeah. So that's a very prominent question that people ask. So the main thing is that even if Ethereum 2.0 really scales Ethereum, that's actually going to help layer 2. So let's imagine Ethereum with scalability is able to get, let's say, a TPS of, let's say, 100-fold from here or 1,000-fold. So 13,000 transactions, let's assume that is there. Like there are some ridiculous numbers with multiple shards and all that, but these shards will have problems with the composability. But let's not go into that. Let's say that there is 1,000 times increase in the speed of the network on Ethereum, right? So there will still be 13,000 transactions, and Ethereum is looking to become the world computer, right? Like where the applications from the whole world will be created on this. The moment Ethereum has the scalability of, like, say, 1,000 transactions, 10 times more or 100 times more number of applications will be built, which will again eat up the entire bandwidth. And then there will again be a scalability issue, which will need layer, right? So it's all about the supply and demand. Right now, the supply of the transactions, think of it like supply and demand for TP, transactions per second, right? TPS, or the capacity. So the supply is very low. That's why the demand is already much bigger than supply. That's why you see, $1 or $0.50 transaction gas fees on Ethereum. The moment the supply increases of the transaction bandwidth, the demand will also increase exponentially from there. And then again, you will be in the same situation where you will need the layer 2 technologies to provide the scalability. So we are not worried about that way, that on layer 2, there will always be a space for layer 2. And we honestly believe that even with Ethereum 2.0 multiple shards, we believe that there will be some shards which will be really strong and secure and decentralized. The other shards may be weak and decentralized. And then many applications will reside on 1 or 2 or maximum 3-4 shards. And then from there, people will still be needing layer 2 solutions. So that's why we believe that there will always be a need of layer 2.
And you mentioned earlier just now that currently Ethereum supports about 13 to 15 transactions per second at its current implementation. At the moment, Ethereum supports about 13 transactions per second. Once we have Matic Network implemented, how many transactions per second can we expect to have on the Ethereum blockchain?
Yeah, so with Ethereum and Matic to start with, there will be around 6,000 to 10,000 transactions per second. And then with a single Matic chain, that can easily be scaled to 30,000 transactions per second. And then we can also add multiple Matic side chains later on to support even larger number of transactions that way. And actually, many people don't realize that the architecture of Matic on the side chain, where we have a POS chain and there are multiple side chains over there, the architecture of Matic is something like the beacon chain of Ethereum itself. Like actually, in terms of design, it's somewhere very closely resembles to Ethereum 2.0 design also.
So we are looking at roughly about a 1,000 to 2,000x increase in transactions per second once Matic Network goes live on the Ethereum blockchain. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. So next question actually is, does Matic only work for Ethereum, or is it a scalability solution that also work for other layer 1 blockchains?
See, in terms of our architecture, we can easily support other blockchains also. But right now, that's not the focus for us. The focus for us is Ethereum, because Ethereum is by far the largest smart contract platform. It has a market share of, I think, 90% or even more than that. So we are not spreading our efforts into any other blockchain. Once any particular blockchain achieves like really great traction over multiple years and has proven enough, then maybe we can think of adding our layer 2 solution on those. Architecturally, that's very easy for us to do, but right now we don't want to invest resources into it for now.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned earlier just now that Rider Network is focused mainly on payments, and Matic is basically support smart contract. It can support any kind of applications. My question is actually, can you explain some of the potential use cases of Matic Network? Basically, which dApps are best suited to make use of Matic's technology?
Yeah. So we also see it in terms of 3-4 larger categories. One is, of course, the payment side. Once you have like faster payments, we already have people like, Incento, who's trying to build a Venmo kind of application on top of Matic Network. And then now they are trying to do something with gig economy. And then we have multiple payment related solutions like bank IT and things like that. We are testing out multiple things. Then on the second category, we have games, and that can be one of the biggest categories, games and NFTs. And recently, like people who have been following Matic, they know that many big games are actually moving from other blockchains, like, Battle Racers moved from Loom Network to Matic Network. And then there are other applications who are also currently there on multiple other platforms, but they are looking to move from those platforms to Matic Network because of the simple thing. The simple thing is that Ethereum is by far the most decentralized and secure smart contracting platform. And various developers moved from Ethereum to other layer 1 blockchains because of the scalability. But now, once you have that scalability on Ethereum itself with Matic Network, why do you need layer 1 solution? Because layer 1 solutions kind of grow with network effects, right? So there's absolutely no requirement of any other layer 1 protocols if you have security and decentralization on layer 2. And one of the biggest reasons is that on Matic sidechain, we support full-blown EVM Ethereum smart contract. So if you have a Ethereum smart contract built on Ethereum, you can deploy the same smart contract on Matic sidechain. So it makes it very easy for the developers.
Yeah, the Matic Network solution is not yet live. I believe I read online on your website that the mainnet is going live.
Yeah. So mainnet is expected to be released by the Q3. So many category. That's the second category, like the gaming category. The third category, which is improving and increasing very fast, is the protocols. So many protocols, existing protocols like storage protocols or database on blockchain and things like that, they also need to do a lot of payments on the blockchains, and some of them are actually looking at Matic Network because they are built on Ethereum to do their payments, because they have to do large number of payments. And the last category I see is of real world applications, which I call, for example, Spring Roll, which is already deployed on Matic, which is actually kind of a LinkedIn on blockchain, right? Provable profiles and everything on blockchain. So these are the 4 main categories which we are seeing in terms of the applications.
So Matic Network is going live in March. Do you already have the dApps that will be using Matic's solution when it goes live in March in the mainnet?
Yeah. We already are on beta mainnet, and I think both on alpha mainnet and beta mainnet, I think there are 7-8 applications already deployed. There are multiple others, I think around 30 to 40 applications which are currently building. And then once our mainnet goes live, they will all be slowly moving on to the final mainnet.
One of the key benefits that is mentioned on the Matic website is better UI and UX for users. How will the users get better UI and UX? Because
main benefits, that point of view is simply one is that the transaction gas costs are really low. Like we have 100 of what you have it on Ethereum. So basically in $1 roughly, we estimate conservatively you can do around 1,000 transactions on blockchain. And then the other thing is that the turnaround time or the block confirmation times are very small. Like you have 1 to 2 second confirmation times. So, imagine using an application on Matic Network, like you click a transaction and just like it happens with your centralized applications today, like you posted a tweet, for example, if it is on Matic Network, it goes like within 1 or 2 seconds. So, for the user experience that you get is as good as what you get on your current applications that the users are used to using. So these two are the biggest benefits.
So basically cheaper transactions and faster transactions for user. So next question actually is on the utility of the Matic token. So you have this Matic token, and what is the use case of this Matic token?
Yeah, so Matic token it has 2 bigger utilities. It's like a pure platform token. So it is proof of stake token. So it is used for the staking. That's the biggest use case. That on Matic Network sidechain, as I told you, that we have a POS chain also. It's a highly decentralized sidechain where we have more than 100 to validate the chain. So they have to stake the Matic tokens in order to become validators, right? So the staking is the main utility. And the second utility is paying for the gas fees. Just like on Ethereum, you pay the gas fees in Ethereum. On Matic sidechain, you pay in Matic tokens.
I guess from a user's point of view, if you use a dApp that makes use of Matic Network Layer 2 technology, you have to pay for each transaction that you make using the dApp, you have to pay Ethereum gas and also Matic gas. Is that right?
No. Once you are there on the Matic sidechain, then you don't need to pay on Ethereum chain. So think of it like, maybe I didn't make it clear enough. So let's say you have some asset on Ethereum. Let's say you have 10 tokens on CoinGecko tokens on Ethereum. You take those tokens onto the sidechain, your assets onto the sidechain. You deposit one time on Ethereum. Once you deposit, then your tokens are there on the sidechain, right? And then, you can do hundreds and hundreds of transactions. And let's say after doing or playing multiple games, you are left with 2 tokens at the end. And only when you want to withdraw it to Ethereum main chain, then only you have to do a transaction on Ethereum. Otherwise, you simply, all your transactions stay on the sidechain. What sidechain in the background, without completely abstracting it from the user, without telling the user, at the back end, what is happening is that all the validators are doing the consensus on whatever is happening on the Matic sidechain and putting a checkpoint. A checkpoint is nothing but a badged, you can think of it as a batching of all the transactions that are happening on the sidechain on the Ethereum main chain. And that's how the scalability is coming. So think of it as thousands of transactions being batched in one transaction as a cryptographic proof and being put on the Ethereum main chain.
All right.
That's how it happens. So as a user, you don't need to pay Ethereum gas. You only need to pay Matic gas fees. And even for that, we don't want users to pay that gas fees. We think that how the current business model works. So for example, for CoinGecko, for using the CoinGecko website, like I don't need to pay, for the server cost. If I click on something, if I see something, I don't need to pay. You as a business from CoinGecko, you are, let's say, renting servers from AWS or DigitalOcean or something like that and running the site and paying for the server cost. And then your business model is built in a way that, you are able to get that cost back. Similarly, in blockchains also, we support meta transactions where the businesses will pay for the transactions. The users will simply install an app, simply use their email ID, create an account where in the background it creates an address and everything. The blockchain will almost be like invisible from the users, and then users can interact with the dApp the way that they do. The user experience with the fast transactions is absolutely very good over there. And then only when users need to interact with the blockchain and they want to take control of their assets and everything, they can go into advanced settings, for example, and then check their address and all that stuff and then take control of their assets in their own wallets. Otherwise, we believe that, all the gas fees and everything should be paid by the business owners itself, and you account it in your own business model as a server cost that you're paying for your application.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask you, is it possible for the developers to actually pay for the gas fees on the Matic network? And I'm very glad to hear that developers, the business owners can pay for the gas fees for the users. Because I think one of the largest pain points for users is onboarding users into the crypto space is that it's just going to be hard trying to distribute ETH or Matic token to users to pay for the gas to even use one of these applications. It should be as simple as possible for the user to use an application. And as you mentioned, the blockchain should be in the background and nobody should know about it. So I'm very glad to hear that this is possible. And I think once we get this done correctly, then we should be primed for greater mass adoption. Otherwise, it's really going to be really hard trying to get people to come onto the blockchain and crypto space these days. So is there a difference between Matic's ERC20 token and Binance DEX BEP2 tokens?
Difference, yeah, these ERC20 token is the Ethereum token and Binance is the Binance chain token. It's just that because we wanted to be available on Binance DEX, because Binance DEX still has, if any DEX has a possibility to really go big, there can be a very high possibility that it can be Binance DEX, right? So we had a very small supply of Matic committed as BEP2. So there's a simple bridge where you can go and, lock your ERC20 and then create BEP2. And then similarly, if you want to convert BEP2 back to ERC20, you can simply bring back BEP2 and then take ERC20 in return of that. So then there's, in terms of the token value and everything, there's no difference. It's one and the same token. The token is actually only ERC20 token. There is a simple bridge where you can lock one Matic token and then create a BEP2 one Matic token and then vice versa. But the original token is ERC20 token only.
Cool. Matic Network received an investment from Binance Lab and did an IEO on Binance last year. Do you want to share with us your experience going through the Binance Lab and the IEO on Binance with us?
So Binance Launchpad is the main thing that we are associated with the Binance on. And Binance Launchpad did a very long evaluation for us. And then, finally and luckily we got selected. And Binance Launchpad actually does a very, very heavy due diligence. As I told you already, it took us 8 months because for the teams who are there from, let's say, Silicon Valley or some other locations of Europe and all, for them, the due diligence may be slightly less. But we being from India, especially, there was a larger kind of and longer kind of due diligence. And once the Binance team was very convinced of the product offering that we were doing, plus the community work that we were doing and all the critical things required for a successful blockchain project, then we got selected. And the experience with Binance Launchpad was very, very good. And I think it's like Binance Launchpad is the best platform for doing the IEOs for any project, which is like an open truth, right, to everyone. And in terms of the support that Binance Launchpad provides you by providing these initially when at the time of the launch, there's a lot of PR also, and Binance has the largest number of users. So you get kind of a global pedestal where you can present to the global community. And we have been very heavily benefited due to that. Community grew from 8,000 people to today, 30,000 people, where it's one of the biggest communities in the crypto space. Our Twitter following grew from 2 to 3,000 people to now 29,000 people almost, and even same on the Reddit and all. So it gave us a larger platform. And I think for any project which is looking to decentralize project, like which is looking to distribute its token to the public and all that, Binance Launchpad is the best place to be.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the IEO trend was something that happened in 2019, and of all the IEO platforms available in the market, I think Binance Launchpad was the best in place. And I think from most team, it makes a lot of sense to get onto the Binance Launchpad. Other exchanges try to replicate the IEO ecosystem, but they are all struggling. So I don't think anyone came even close.
Yeah, I think many of these other exchanges, by bringing in very weird kind of strategies like lock in, lock out, this and that, many kind of manipulation. Due to that, it killed off the IEO kind of wave, right? And created some of negative sentiment also, because many projects on these exchanges initially launched and became like 20x and then became or went below the IEO price and stuff like that. I think due to that, the IEOs got a bad name. But I personally feel that IEOs are a much better improvement top of ICOs. Because imagine in terms of ICOs in 2017, it was very easy. Simply create a website. And then even if you don't have anything, just have some flashy white paper. Because I used to do consulting, right? And I used to get all these offers from some random people on the internet, which even when you speak to, you realize that they don't know anything about blockchain. All they were doing is that put 10,000, 50,000 rupee or $50,000 or $20,000 to some consultants and then get some white paper and then publish it on the blockchain, this thing, and do an ICO, right? And even I used to think that there's a large number of scammers in this space right now, just looking to do IEO. They don't want to build any product. They simply want to raise money and then slowly do something and move away with this money. And the IEOs, the biggest benefit is that you have the exchanges. If you are doing it with responsible exchanges, the end users who are going to participate in the IEO, they are at least protected by the due diligence of exchange, right? Because exchange will at least do a larger, exchanges have a much better capability of doing a larger level due diligence, understanding the product market fit kind of things, and then the possibilities and the legitimacy of the team and everything. So I think IEOs are much better advancement on top of ICOs. And right now the markets are bad, but I think IEOs will be back and they will keep coming back because they are a much better way of doing crowdfunding.
I agree completely with you. I think IEO is a big improvement over what we had before in ICO, and there were so many scammers. At least with the IEOs, exchanges do the first level of vetting for the users, so there's less scams going around. All right, I'm going to ask you next on a question that affected Matic Network. So on the 10th of December, there was a sudden drop in Matic token price, where the token price went from about 4 cents to about 1 cent in a matter of a few hours. This wiped out the 400% gains that Matic made in the previous 2 weeks. What happened on the day and what action step did Matic team take?
That's one of the most unfortunate things that have happened to us, because even now, like, we have a very high reputation in terms of our technology and everything. But then that 1 minute, like actually that happened in 1 to 2 minutes in a single dump. The token price went 70% down and then improved from there a bit. But then because in this space, there have been many cases where the teams have been selling their tokens in the markets and things like that. And people like started anticipating this. And then there was a lot of FUDing also many people started going to our smart contract and saying that, hey, Matic team is selling this and that without calculating what they're looking at. Somebody saw, let's say, 1% tokens, like 100 million tokens, and he concluded that that's the 10% supply. But actually, that 1.1% tokens were the investor unlock, which we had already previously communicated. And then later on, that person also apologized and all that. What happened is that a lot of applications, like, for example, battle racers from Loom Network to Matic, there was other applications like Mintflint and things like that. There were multiple announcements. Plus, there was a speculation that Matic staking is going to come, for which the Matic staking games are currently going on. And the mainnet is coming and all that. So even in the bad markets, Matic token initially started doing very well. Right. And then the other thing was that we have the margin trading enabled on Matic, where you can borrow on Matic tokens and then, take long or short positions on Binance and BitMax and many other exchanges. Plus 2-3 weeks back to that, we were also selected, or we won a community vote for listing on FTX also, like the futures exchange. So I think there were a lot of leveraged trading options were also available. And then in a market where everything was flat, Bitcoin was actually going down and the whole market was in the down slump, Matic token was doing really great even in that time. Like even in that 2 weeks where it became like 3 to 4x, even before that it was doing well from the lows of the rally. And plus, of course, we are backed by Coinbase. So there is a speculation on that also. So I think what started happening is that the upward movement of the token became really parabolic. And many of these whales would have also, I don't know, like many people said, and because the volumes were also really, really huge. Most of the times we had volumes which were bigger than Ethereum itself, and which is kind of very ironical. Matic token is having larger volume than any other coin, at times 2 to 3 times volume. So I think that there were a lot of larger traders that got involved with Matic, with large amount of positions, trading Matic every day and things like that. And then once it started going 3x or 4x from the starting point of that rally, of course, it's very natural that many people will start shorting. But then the price stayed same for, I think, 1 or 2 weeks. It stayed at the all-time high. And I think due to that, many people would have also started longing again that, oh, now this is not going to stop. This is the next Ethereum and all that. You know how speculation works, right? So people who have bought the token, they start further, shilling the token. So due to that, there was a large interest. And then I think what some of these whales would have done is that they borrowed large amount of Matic tokens from the markets, and they knew that by now the large people are also longing on the Matic. The retail people who have lost, they think that the Matic is not going down. It is going to maybe 1,000 Satoshi from there, and many people have longed. I think these people borrowed a large amount of Matic tokens and dumped it into the market. It resulted in that there are two other things, right? So there are stop losses from people which start getting triggered. So imagine you had a stop loss, the price came down 30%, your stop loss gets triggered. Then that token also comes as a sell pressure into the market. Then other people who had done the longs using the margin borrows, they also start getting liquidated, and their liquidation also results in Matic token being sold in the market at market prices. So that created catastrophic kind of a snowball effect, which brought the price down in one stick. Like in 5 to 10 minutes, the price was down 70%. And then on the Twitter also, it looked like a coordinated attack to us, because on Twitter also, like around the same time, within like 10 minutes of this, many FUD accounts started saying that Matic team is dumping and this and that, and we were actually asleep. And the fun thing is that when I slept off that day, this all happened 45 minutes after I actually went to sleep. I was actually awake till 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning that day. And then I woke up in the morning with a distress call from, my other co-founder, who was luckily awake. And he said that there is something that is happening. And then I woke up and really saw this. And then we started arresting the situation. I immediately went to Twitter and said that, let us see. And it will be very shortly clear that Matic team has no role to play in this. And then very quickly, Binance team did an analysis at their end, and they found out that there is absolutely nothing from our side to deal with it. And these were some large existing traders at their platform who had done the large amount of sellings and all that. And they came in our support from there. All our partner projects who have worked with us, who know us, they know that Matic team is not there. And the traders should also understand, any intelligent or knowledgeable trader would know that if some team, imagine if somebody was doing this pump and dump, right? So what they do is that they'll pump or they'll increase the price to some extent, and then slowly in 2, 3, 4 days. And you can see that with many coins happening, which gain, let's say 100%, 150% in 1 week. You will see that in 5 to 7 days, they will slowly sell off everything and then the price will come back to the point where it was originally. But even if somebody is trying to do pump and dump these kind of strategies, they will not do it in 1 minute. They are actually going to lose that 70%. Like whoever sold in that candle, that 70% candle, they actually lost that 70% uptick, right? 40, 50%, 70%. So all the knowledgeable traders know, but the retail people and whoever loses money, they want to point fingers at someone. But then the whole crypto community came in our support and many projects came in our support, many industry leaders, even from Ethereum side, Eric Connor and many other people like Ivanes, they came in support of Matic. Then the whole situation was arrested. And the surprising thing is that that kind of dump that again came when price went up, stabilizing around 270 Satoshi. There was again a 30% dump, flash dump in 1 minute. Then one small one with 10 to 15 Satoshi one again came. But then slowly what happens is that with the free markets, both the sides of the trade get developed. So once people realize that, okay, something like this can happen, they will have the counter strategies to that. And any particular strategy cannot survive long enough in the market. And that's what happened. And now the price is absolutely stable and moving in a kind of organic manner. But yeah, for us, it was a very tough time because the most important thing that we have is our technical reputation. And in terms of retail community, many people started saying bad thing. Only now with Coinbase, because everybody knows that Coinbase has a very high level of due diligence and everything. Only now, people are like realizing that yes, there are people who are doing due diligence and there's absolutely no involvement from the Matic team side.
Cool.
So yeah.
Well, let's hope that such an incident will not happen again. I'm very glad that you guys managed to come out of it pretty much unscathed and everything's went out pretty well after that.
I would also say that for any small cap projects who have margin trading enabled, they should always alert their retail community. I personally also have started thinking that going forward, anytime there is any exponential movement upwards or downwards, I will always alert the Matic community that see that if you don't know how margin trading and leverage trading work, please do not get engaged with them because that's the only time when you lose money as retail traders. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier just now that the Matic team is based in India. I believe that you guys are based in Bangalore. I just want to know, what is the crypto landscape like in India? There was a lot of news about India last year. For example, multiple times there were news report about the government of India banning Bitcoin. But also there was some positive news coming out where Binance made the acquisition into WazirX, a large crypto exchange in India. So do you want to maybe walk us through a little bit about how's the landscape like in India these days?
Yeah. So basically, in India, the media has done a lot of sensational reporting over here. But there is absolutely no ban on crypto. You can buy, sell crypto over here freely, P2P and all that. Only thing, because the speculation, the Indian volumes at that time back in 2018 used to be very, very big. And the Indian government wanted to curb the speculation and they rightfully did that because there were a lot of honest and innocent people were getting scammed. So what they did is that the Federal Bank of India, RBI basically, they simply said that banks associated with RBI, like all the banks in India are associated with RBI. RBI simply said that you will not support exchange accounts. So only thing that is not allowed in India is that the exchanges cannot have the bank account wherein they can provide the on-ramp. You can deposit money and buy crypto and sell crypto and withdraw money to bankers. That is not allowed from the RBI banks. The other thing is that Bitcoin is not considered a legal payment tender. Like you cannot do I work for you and then you cannot pay me in Bitcoin. But you can buy Bitcoin as a commodity, as an asset. That's absolutely allowed. Even today, the RBI has made a statement from their side that Bitcoin is not banned in India. They have just recommended that it's risky. So the retail people should be very careful about it. And we completely agree with the government of India on that because a lot of retail people in India do not understand the crypto markets completely. And the retail people should not be given unlimited access to these speculative assets at this early moment. Till the time there is proper regulation, proper protection for the retail people to buy these risky crypto assets. So there's absolutely no ban in that sense. And we do hackathons all across India, all the top, even government-owned technology B schools in India, we do hackathons and all that. And things are absolutely fine. And there are exchanges like, as you rightly said, that WazirX, who have a P2P network of payments. So you can actually buy and sell crypto using a P2P network. That means you don't deposit or withdraw from the exchange, you deposit to the peers, right? So I deposit in your account and then you transfer crypto to me on the exchange account. So they have built these systems, and there are 2-3 exchanges which are doing very well. WazirX is there, CoinDCX is there, and then BitBNS is there. All these exchanges are doing absolutely fine. So there is no ban as such on crypto in India. And people are also anticipating that soon there will be a regulation which will provide the guidelines on how to go about crypto if you are in India. Yeah.
That is very insightful on what is happening in India. Like a lot of us were just clueless on what is happening in India. So thank you very much for explaining it. So one last question before you wrap things up. So if people is interested in finding out and following Matic Network, what's the best place that they can do to follow Matic Network?
See, the best place is our Telegram group. So our Telegram group is @Matic Network without anything, because there are many scam groups also. @Matic Network is a 30,000 strong group. And the same is our Twitter handle, @Matic Network on Twitter. These two are the most important areas. If you want to follow Matic Network, you can be there. And then once you come on Telegram, you will find me very active over there. If you have any particular question, you can DM me. I respond all of my Telegram chats. And if you have any particular question regarding Matic Network and you want to speak to the founding team, I am there time to speak with you. So yeah, these two are the main platforms.
Thank you very much for joining us on the CoinGecko podcast. I'm very happy to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Bobby. And thanks a lot for providing me the opportunity to present before the large CoinGecko community. Hopefully, we'll keep meeting. And once we have more milestones to share, hopefully we'll do this sometime again in future. Also, very, very happy and thankful to be here.
Yeah, likewise over here. Thank you very much. All right, that wraps up the show. Thank you for listening to the CoinGecko podcast with Bobby. If you like our show and want to know more, check out podcast.coingecko.com or please leave us a review on iTunes. If you have any feedback, do drop us an email at hello@coingecko.com. Join us for more next week. See ya!
This podcast is provided as part of the overall information on cryptocurrency contained on our website, is for your general information only, and does not howsoever constitute any endorsement, financial or investment advice, nor any solicitation or offer of securities or other financial instruments. CoinGecko and the podcast presenter makes no warranties, implied or express, of any kind in relation to this podcast, including, without limitation, the accuracy and updatedness of its content. All opinions and recommendations therein the podcast are based on the personal opinion of the presenter. Please conduct your own research and procure professional advice should you, at your own risk, decide to howsoever invest or trade in relation to the content contained in the podcast.